This video examines the 2018 Supreme Court case, Carpenter v. United States, using a mock trial structure to explore the critical legal arguments. The case began in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Michigan between 2011 and 2013. The federal criminal prosecution involved the warrantless acquisition of historical cell site location information, or CSLI, following a series of armed robberies. The factual background reveals that the FBI obtained 127 days of Timothy Carpenter's CSLI without a warrant, relying on the Stored Communications Act. This data, consisting of nearly 13,000 location points, was used to place Carpenter near the robberies, setting up a conflict between the third-party doctrine and digital privacy. The prosecution relied on 127 days of CSLI to connect Carpenter's phone to the robbery locations since they lacked eyewitnesses. Carpenter's defense filed a motion to suppress, arguing that obtaining this location data without a warrant violated his Fourth Amendment rights. In the procedural posture, the district court denied the motion to suppress, leading to Carpenter's conviction. The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed this, applying the third-party doctrine. Carpenter then appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. The government's core argument rested on the third-party doctrine. They claimed Carpenter forfeited privacy by voluntarily sharing location data with his carrier, viewing CSLI as a business record, and citing precedents like Miller and Smith. The defense countered that sharing CSLI is not truly voluntary, as modern life requires cell phone use. They argued that 127 days of location data paints an intimate picture of a person's life, demanding protection under the Fourth Amendment, given technological changes. Next, we will look at the specific arguments and witnesses presented during the trial level of the Carpenter case. The defense's theory focused on the Fourth Amendment. They argued that long-term CSLI reveals an intimate portrait of life, and its acquisition without a warrant was an unconstitutional search. Therefore, the third-party doctrine should not apply to this pervasive digital data. The defense argued that the collection of long-term CSLI constitutes a Fourth Amendment search. They maintained that warrantless access infringes on privacy expectations, as this data offers an intimate window into a person's movements and life. The Fourth Amendment protects a reasonable expectation of privacy, which was central to the Supreme Court's ruling. Carpenter successfully argued that he had a privacy interest in his long-term location data, making warrantless access an infringement. Antoinette D. Banks, the victim's sister, testified during the evidentiary hearing. Her testimony provided emotional context, which helped to contextualize the human impact of the case. Now, let us examine the U.S. government's arguments and key witnesses presented during the trial. The government argued that a warrant was unnecessary because CSLI was obtained lawfully using the Stored Communications Act. They contended that historical CSLI records, which helped place Carpenter near the robberies, were third-party business records with no expectation of privacy. The government insisted that the data was a third-party business record with no privacy expectation. They used the Stored Communications Act to obtain the historical CSLI, which they utilized to place Carpenter near the crime scenes. The third-party doctrine states that information voluntarily shared with a third party is unprotected, meaning there is no expectation of privacy. While the Carpenter ruling significantly limited this doctrine in the context of long-term CSLI, it did not overrule it entirely. The prosecution's theory was that CSLI is a third-party business record requiring no warrant, lawfully obtained via the SCA. They relied on the data to corroborate witness testimony, arguing that the government acted in good faith and that the CSLI was essential for proving Carpenter's involvement. FBI Special Agent Matthew H. Davis, the lead investigator, testified about obtaining the cell site data without a warrant, linking Carpenter's phone to the robberies. Under cross-examination, he admitted not seeking a warrant based on legal advice, and the defense challenged the data's precision. The FBI lead agent confirmed that no search warrant was obtained for the CSLI. Witness testimony, corroborated by the CSLI, linked Carpenter's phone to the robberies, although the defense questioned the geographical precision of the location data. David L. Robinson II, an accomplice in the armed robberies, confessed to the crimes and implicated Timothy Carpenter. He served as a key cooperating witness whose testimony was corroborated by the CSLI location evidence. Detective Charles T. Gerke of the Detroit Police testified about linking the robberies and establishing probable cause. The defense challenged the strength of the pre-CSLI investigation, suggesting the cell data created the case. His testimony showed CSLI was the final, decisive piece of evidence. The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed Carpenter's conviction, ruling that a search warrant was not required for the CSLI. They considered the records to be third-party business records, applying the established third-party doctrine precedent. The district court denied Carpenter's motion to suppress the data, relying on the Stored Communications Act for data access. The court admitted the cell site data without a warrant, which helped place Carpenter near the robberies. Ultimately, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Timothy Carpenter. They determined that warrantless access to 127 days of CSLI constituted a Fourth Amendment search, establishing a general requirement for a warrant for long-term cell site data and recognizing a privacy expectation in that data. In November 2017, the Supreme Court granted certiorari. Justice Roberts delivered the 5-4 majority opinion, ruling that warrantless CSLI acquisition is a Fourth Amendment search and generally requires a warrant for long-term data access. Justice Kennedy wrote a notable dissent, expressing fears that the ruling would hinder law enforcement. Other dissents, like Justice Thomas's, focused on the applicability of the third-party doctrine. The majority opinion also generated several concurring opinions. The Carpenter ruling established new Fourth Amendment protection, requiring warrants for long-term location data access. Though it limited the third-party doctrine, it did not overrule it entirely, and its legal implications extend to other digital surveillance technologies. Key takeaways include the Supreme Court protecting privacy in location data. Warrantless access to long-term CSLI now requires a warrant, limiting the third-party doctrine and establishing new Fourth Amendment protection for digital surveillance. Thank you for watching this video on the Carpenter versus United States case.